Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
We got a going in Raw news update for you because this weekend was a big weekend, not just for the UFC, not just for Brock Lesnar, but his other employer, the WWE, which is what we talk about here on this channel.
Yes.
And so we figured we'd discuss, now that we've seen what Brock Lesnar is capable of in the UFC, we'll talk about what we think how that'll translate to his future in the WWE.
Okay, it probably won't matter much, but we'll see.
What won't matter much?
Are you speaking about his performance strictly in UFC over the weekend, or just his presence in UFC and how that will affect his presence in WWE?
I think his performance is key to his future in both endeavors. Because if he walked in there, well, here's the setup: UFC 200. They had been slated as the main event once Johnny Bones Jones performance enhanced his way out of the main event.
Yeah,
and
but then it wasn't, was it?
Because there was a title on the line with the women, with Miesha Tate, who got destroyed by Nunes. I forget how you pronounce the last name. Just murdered. She's so cute, and her face was mangled afterwards. Anyways, they elevated them to the main event, which I thought was pretty cool because there's a title on the line.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But anyway, then Brock and Mark Hunt we're down to the not even like the second match, or the second to last match.
Yeah.
Anyways, you know, the going into the match, it was Mark Hunt's powerful hands, because he's a striker,
versus Brock Lesnar's powerful wrestling.
Powerful wrestling man. He's like a bear.
Powerful wrestler. Yeah.
Who will just take you down. Anyways. So it kind of felt going into it like, what was going to happen first? Was Brock going to get caught first, or was Mark Hunt going to get taken down first? And would he be able to defend that? And that's exactly how it played out. Brock from the get was extremely tentative to do anything that would compromise his facha. Facha means face, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't going to take one on the chin. He
was not going to do that. And so a lot of people were crowing on the Twitters about it being a boring match, but I just felt that, hey, you know what? If your opponent, if his thing is he's going to punch you, then you need to make sure you don't get punched.
No, it's strategically sound, but
it makes for a boring match.
Yeah, it does make for a boring match.
But you're there to. My point is this: you're there to win. If you've got a guy who wins 10 boring matches in a row, he's going to win the championship.
See, but yeah, I know. Here's kind of what I feel about his performance is. If he had beaten Mark Hunt swiftly and
it's hard to say his name without saying the C word.
It kind of is. Swiftly and decisively, like made him submit really quickly or knock him out somehow. Yeah. That'd have been great. That made Brock look like $1 million.
Oh yeah.
I think even if Brock had gotten knocked out, he wouldn't look good in terms of his UFC future. But at least that's the storyline he can carry in WWE. A boring win just doesn't really do much.
Well, in terms of going into the WWE, I disagree. I think going into WWE, any win is I won at UFC. It's kind of like in the WWE when the bad guy wins by cheating. It's still a win. You know what I mean?
Like, I know it's a win, but it's just in terms of how to approach it from a storyline perspective.
Could they have marketed?
It's the least interesting one.
I see what you're saying. I think it's probably more beneficial to him in the WWE for him to come out with any sort of victory as opposed to just getting annihilated, even in a spectacular bout. If he had just completely destroyed Mark Hunt, then yeah, they could have really run with that. Like Paul Heyman would be firing on all cylinders whenever Bork decides to come back. Before SummerSlam, obviously. I know he's supposed to be coming back soon.
He's supposed to be on SmackDown next week.
That's right. He's on the draft SmackDown. That's right.
Yeah.
But I think that, and so that was the thing. But basically, he made sure he didn't get hit. He smothered Mark Hunt. He grinded him. He rubbed his purple, giant, throbbing head, which it was purple, on Mark Hunt's head. And he got the decision. It was pretty easy to understand. Like, at first he was like, we're like, oh my God, is Brock gonna get knocked out? Brock ate a couple of shots. He made sure not to get any clean ones. They were mostly contested that sort of broke through an arm or whatever. But anyways, the bottom line is how will this affect? I think here's my thing for fans of the WWE that want to see Brock in the WWE. as much as he probably would have been had he not found this itch to go in the UFC. I think everything will remain the same. I really do.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. In Brock's favor, if Brock really thinks that he wants to go after the UFC title,
yeah, which
would probably mean, like, for him to sign that contract, I mean, it's possible they'd make an exception for him, but the UFC, do we know, number one, do we know how long he has left on his...
I believe he has 2 more years.
On his WWE contract, right?
I believe he has 2 more years, yes.
Okay. If he were to fight for the title, I'd be really surprised if the UFC would be okay with him continuing on in the WWE, even on a part-time basis. Now, they may make an exception for him simply because he's old and his window is closing, and as he said,
he's a draw. He's still a draw.
He's a huge draw. So they might say, okay, well, we'll let you do the big 4 if that's what you want to do, or even the big 2, the biggest 2. But the thing is, the heavyweight division, Mark Hunt was ranked, I think, number 8 in the heavyweight. It was either 6 or 8. I can't forget which one.
Yeah, 6 sounds familiar.
I think it might be 6. I remember looking at they showed the rankings, and like Roy Nelson is number 10. So we're talking about a weak division. That's what we're talking about here. I mean, it's funny because I'm not a huge MMA guy, but I think for a period over the last couple of years when like Cain Velasquez was up there, I think it was a relatively strong division, but the belt has had so much turnover. Yeah. Like, I was looking at all the belts in the UFC, and there's only one that has been defended more than 2 times in the men. And that's Demetrius Johnson in the strawweight. I think it's strawweight? Strawweight might be women. I forget. Anyways, the lowest division for the men, Demetrius Johnson, he's been champion since 2012. Everybody else is 2015 or 2016, and nobody has more title defenses nobody has more than 2.
That's interesting.
So it's either 2, 1, or none. There are like so many champions who have just won the belt and haven't even defended yet. So the turnover rate now in the UFC seems to be a lot more. Yeah. Guys either match up better or just the styles get caught up with faster. People get figured out faster. And so that works against, I think, Brock Lesnar, who had like a really long title reign. You've got all these people who can match up with styles, and he didn't show a lot of striking ability, which he never really did in the first place. But he had like almost no explosiveness, which is what we saw when he was the champion. Yeah. And it was basically be really, really tentative, don't get hit, and then take him down. And I'm not sure that's going to fly at the in the top 3 guys in the heavyweight division. I just don't know that that's going to fly. So I'm not sure he's going to be contending for the UFC heavyweight title anytime soon. No. I'm not sure if that's a goal of his, like given his performance, if he thinks it's realistic or not. I don't know if that's something he wants to do. He probably wants to just keep on taking whatever matches come his way because he likes to fight. Yeah. Which, if that's the case, that's really good news for the WWE because he can totally be a 2-sport athlete in that regard. Yeah.
If that's the strategy going into his fights, don't take one on the chin and just kind of do what you need to do to win. That's the best way, I guess, for him to keep his position in WWE and keep on getting fights in UFC.
Right, exactly. He got $2.5 million.
I know, not including whatever.
Not including the pay-per-view revenue. And you know how much he got from Reebok for his sponsorship, for the Reebok sponsorship?
How much?
$5,000. Because that stupid system they have is based on the number of fights that you fought.
That's crazy.
And I guess it doesn't take into account his, how long
his previous tenure.
Yeah, exactly. That is so utterly stupid. If anything illustrates how ridiculous, like how much would he have gotten from Jimmy John's? You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
How much? I'm sure Jimmy John's pays a bit more than $5,000.
I would think so.
Yeah. Anyway, so I would think that like even if he does want to scratch itch, I think he said in his press conference too. Brock Lesnar, first of all, Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. And so I think that Brock, he's probably going to have an open invitation in the UFC. Oh, yeah. And of course, the WWE is going to try to keep on, tabs on him. The bottom line is in a couple of years, he's not going to be able to fight in the UFC anymore. I mean, age catches up with everybody. Yeah. And even him in his press conference, even though he had, he's still the cock of the walk. It ain't like it was before. And I think he realized that. He knew. He was like, still getting my bearings here in the UFC, coming back, and so he understands that. So regardless, like the WWE, he can keep on going until he wants to stop.
Yeah.
Brock can keep on going until he's 50. If he's gonna, he's always gonna be a
go on
draw.
until he's 60 probably at this rate.
Exactly. He still looks amazing, and it's WWE. It's not real.
Especially when he's only wrestling 3-4 matches a year.
Right. Exactly. So I don't think anybody really has. I don't think he's going to be done with the WWE. I think they keep him really, really well paid, and I think that the UFC is going to be a place where he can scratch that itch for as long as he wants. And I think he'll be able to. I think he'll be able to win a lot of fights there at the bottom of the not the bottom, but at the bottom 10 of the top rankings in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Guys like him. I mean, I'd love to see Brock versus Roy Nelson. I mean, I'd love to see it. Two guys who just smother people. Who can smother whom? I'd love to see that. That'd be great. It would not surprise me if that was the next fight we saw.
Yeah.
So this is kind of interesting. We'll talk about Randy Orton now a little bit because that's sort of the flip side of things on the SummerSlam ticket.
Yes.
Zaptuit did an article where they said they think this is bad news for the WWE because Brock winning at UFC means he'll definitely win at SummerSlam.
Well, hold on. Whatever Brock did at UFC was irrelevant to him beating Randy Orton. He was going to beat Randy Orton regardless of what happened to UFC. If he lost at UFC, he would have destroyed Randy Orton at SummerSlam. Now they can have a decent competitive match, hopefully.
Well, hold on a second. What is the logic there? If he loses at UFC, you think they'd overbook him on SummerSlam?
Yeah, they come back. They have him come back in super strong and looking to take out his frustrations on the WWE roster from losing at UFC.
Zaptuit here makes the bigger case about Orton, how a loss for a returning Orton when Brock's just going to fight at SummerSlam and then disappear until probably the Rumble or something like that.
Well, how's it going to be bad for Randy?
How's it going to be bad for Randy? Because he's coming back. My thing is, Randy's not going to be in the I don't think Randy's going to be in the title scene.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily going to. I mean, if maybe a loss.
If they're talking about Kevin Owens, maybe. But Randy Orton's been with the company for almost 15 years.
Right. He can take one
match.
Loss.
One match is not going to ruin his reputation.
Yeah, I mean, and he's going to be around. He's going to be around to put over guys like Kevin Owens, I believe. Owens. So yeah, I'm not. I really don't think that's much of a concern. I think that the way that he won, I think was probably the best case because, dude, if he came in and just annihilated him, if he looked like the Brock of old, he would basically. I mean, I know he's under contract with the WWE, but as he says, Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. He would feel that itch so much more.
Oh yeah.
To contend for the title, and in that case, WWE's on the back burner. I mean, it really is. Regardless of what they want, they'd be on the back burner at that point. So I think this kind of victory, where it's like, well, it wasn't.
He won, but it wasn't spectacular.
Exactly. So he can maybe hover along the bottom 10 of the top of the heavyweight division. But he's not going to be in the top 3 anytime soon. I mean, I don't think so. Maybe he feels different. I mean, he's Brock Lesnar. I'm sure he's got all the confidence in the world.
And it would be interesting to see what the buy rate was for the pay-per-view, and see if say the UFC made a huge chunk of money off pay-per-view buys, and they think Lesnar is responsible for that, and they might be willing to give him a heavyweight title shot strictly.
Yeah.
For the revenue aspect of it,
give him Roy Nelson, and then if he goes through Roy Nelson, take on whoever. I don't even know the name of the guy. It's like it's like Syrup or something like that. Mike.
Oh, it's the guy from Cleveland, right?
Mike Syrup. Yeah, it is Cleveland. Yeah, I know that much.
Yeah.
He just has a really oddball name, and I didn't write it down over here. So, but he just won the title.
Yeah, and he's defending it at 203, I think, the same card that CM Punk's making his debut. Because it's in Cleveland.
CM Punk didn't really say anything about, I can't wait for 203. God, I hope he actually fights. I can't wait.
It'll be fun.
He was on some panel with Cowboy Cerrone, who I love Cowboy. But I read on Twitter. I didn't actually look at the encounter because it just annoys me. Like, he was up there at some like fan panel, and like some fan gave him shit for, I guess, being CM Punk because he got no credential in the sport. And I guess him and Cerrone, who are friends, like obliterated, everything that was destroyed this guy, or obliterate him or whatever, together. And apparently it was really entertaining. But I'm like, dude, until you fight a fight, you're not obliterating any fan. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I know.
CM Punk. I still maintain that the thing that annoys me most is that CM Punk doing this UFC thing just validates Chongo.
Oh, yeah.
At least in his mind it does.
Oh, I know.
Oh, goodness gracious. Anyways, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens, how they book Brock coming out. He's going to be on SmackDown for the draft coming up very, very soon. And then he'll be fighting Orton at SummerSlam. It was a little weird, a little odd to see they had WWE ads running on UFC programming.
Yeah, it is weird. And then apparently, according to CNN, WWE went and bought UFC right after the pay-per-view.
Who knew? WWE had $4 billion in their coffers to spend. And dude, after I tweeted, and then 2 hours later, I went back and looked, and it was still there. It was still there. Oh man,
goodness,
that was just absolutely ridiculous. So yeah. Oh, interesting thing too. I'm just gonna tack this on the end, just because the other guys at the house, we missed you, and we all decided because Bruce Buffer was there, of course, on UFC, not at the house.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, you think Bruce Buffer has lapped his brother in earnings? And so we did a little bit of looking up. I want you to guess how much Michael Buffer, according to the internet, is worth.
$14 million.
Okay. Let's see here. Multiply that by about 30.
Oh my goodness.
He's worth $400 million. And so he gets, I think, between $3 and $5 million per announcing gig.
Oh my goodness.
You know how much Bruce Buffer gets per UFC fight or per UFC event?
$10,000.
It was $30,000.
Oh.
He's worth $2.5 million. And his brother's worth $400 million.
That's crazy.
And Bruce is far and away better at his job.
Oh yeah.
He's so much better. Anyways, that's it for now. Vince McMahon's going to be back on Raw tonight, Larson. Is that exciting?
Yes, sure.
Well, are we going to find out who's going to be running SmackDown tonight?
No.
No, we're not. That's our Raw preview tonight.
Yep,
anyways, we'll be back tomorrow with Going in Raw, the podcast, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Yep. Goodbye.
Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome to Going in Raw. Larson, it was a big, eventful weekend for the WWE there.
Wait, hold on.
What?
Is this a full Going in Raw show?
It's a news update.
Oh, because you just said welcome to Going in Raw. I'm worried people might think this is an actual podcast.
Oh, okay. We'll start over then.
Well, that's not. I was trying to make it a joke, but okay, it's fine.
Well, see, this is what we'll put over the end with a little click out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right.